All right. Well, welcome everybody to the Techie Surgeon podcast. This is your host, Dr. Christian Payan, the Techie Surgeon. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Revel AI Health, also an orthopedic surgeon. And today, really excited to be speaking with the CEO of Knowtex, Caroline Zhang. Knowtex is an incredible company that is scaling ambient documentation intelligence across the country. Recently won a huge contract with the VA. Caroline, why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners? We're really excited to learn more about you, the company, and what the direction of clinical AI and health policy will be.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for having me. So I'm Caroline Zhang, the co-founder and CEO of Knowtex. And Knowtex at a high level, we are a AI native voice operating system for the clinician that eliminates needing the electronic health record. So we turn the natural patient conversation into fully integrated EHR agnostic clinical workflow automation, and also provide intelligent insights tailored by medical specialty. By way of personal background, I have spent the last decade just working interdisciplinary on biomedical research, AI research, as well as government work. So it all comes together in Knowtex, where our team really built Knowtex because of the opportunities we saw at Stanford doing AI research on AI safety, conversational AI applied to medicine to supercharge healthcare workflows today in a safe and trustworthy way. Um, I can elaborate a little bit more,
Yeah.
or okay. And then in terms of our personal experience, being AI researchers, we felt it was so important for us to spend at least a year walking in the clinician's shoes. So both my co-founder and I, we applied to be medical scribes, and we actually worked in a orthopedic and oncology
No
clinic.
way. I did
We
not know
did,
that.
yeah.
Orthopedics.
Exactly. And so it's a special treat when we work with orthopedics. Of course, all specialties
But
now, but
especially orthopedics.
yes, especially orthopedics, of course. And I think just being there, knowing what goes into a right note, knowing what goes through a peer-to-peer review, order entry, even seeing all the workflow components that happen, that is not just documentation, but upstream and downstream workflows inform very much what Notex is today. And so our goal really is to be that central operating system for the clinician so they can just really focus on having an excellent patient care and focus on the patient's story. Um, so we've, built the product shoulder to shoulder, um, elbow to elbow with clinicians, and that's been a part of our thesis from day one.
I love that. I love that. And yeah, you all have had a ton of success. I would love to hear more about your founder story. I know that you have a myriad of experience in finance. You've done a little bit of political work. You were at Morgan Stanley for some. Tell me and the listeners, just how did you decide you were going to start running through walls and become a startup founder and solve this huge problem in healthcare and in technology?
Sure. So I'll start with my roots. I'm actually from San Diego, born and raised, so great healthcare hub. I think growing up there worked a lot in biomedical research. Eventually, focus at Stanford on AI research as it relates more to conversational AI, but I was interested in biomedical computation applications too. So spent some time at Salk Institute working on prostate cancer, breast cancer research. And so we always saw that opportunity for clinical research to be baked more into today's delivery of care. Morgan Stanley, I would say, was an informative experience for me because I wanted to take a 30,000 foot view at what are sort of the financial drivers of healthcare inefficiency.
Mm-hmm.
There's, I mean, well over $1 trillion. I think in the US today, we're spending about 5 trillion of the GDP on healthcare. So it is important for us as we're building this product to understand there are a lot of things we want to have in healthcare and fix broken aspects, but what's actually going to be a top five, top one priority for the healthcare system or healthcare clinic to buy and adopt and be able to generate value in a sustainable way. So that's where the financial background came. But I will say, leaving investment banking to the founder side was really natural for me because what means the most is being able to work with users and see that impact upfront. And there's nothing special like that in terms of working with the clinician and seeing that impact on patient care. government background came because I've always been interested in community impact. So I think there are multiple election years where I got involved in my local campaigns and community work. I think even in San Francisco, where we're headquartered right now, we're seeing a revival of the city, and that's really because people get involved at the city council level, at the mayoral level. But being involved with government, I had the opportunity to be with the U.S. Senate and to
Yeah.
work with Schmidt Futures. So to see things from a lens where does federal government have priorities and how can we drive change in a nationalized way? That was really exciting to see mobility from that level and also to be able to see what opportunity philanthropy and public policy can support in terms of private sector initiatives. So a long journey, but now I'm at Knowtex where it all comes together in our government deployment. It comes together in our healthcare solution and thinking through um, ambient voice AI workflows as a first use case of applied AI in healthcare that is red hot,
Yeah,
delivering
it's
financial
so hot.
value, and
So,
also a government #1 priority. So it checks all three boxes. I think I couldn't have predicted the dots, but they all connect now.
yeah, go to market is so important in healthcare. And I think that what you all have done is really interesting. And I think that it's a sustainable strategy, right? You took your knowledge of the federal landscape and what government contractors were going to need. And it seems like some of your strategy was honed in on building trust in the tool and in building the company in a way that the government would trust you with really sensitive information. Tell me a little bit about just your philosophy for company building, how you went about building the value proposition for Knowtex, and maybe a little bit too, just about how you built your initial team and and what that initial decision for go to market and building out the team was like.
Yeah, definitely. So I think on company building, the core thesis for us and is really building something that users actually want. And when we mean users, we mean going right to the end user, clinicians. Um, this is something that, we took the step to be working as medical scribes, as medical staff. So I don't think everyone does that, but there was a time where we just in our scrubs would stop anybody in Whole Foods for clinician interviews and really go that extra mile to be able to have that information. So, um, building together with clinicians, being user first, and then also building AI safety and AI trustworthy infrastructure since day one. Being in healthcare, building for HIPAA compliancy, building for SOC 2, Type 2, all those types of different cybersecurity requirements all the way to today, where we're deployed in the government environment, where we have federal authority to operate. And for those listeners that know government contracting, FedRAMP, that's where we're able to deliver on federal grade security for not just clinicians, but patient workflows. So I think building the company, we also have the thesis that trust is so important. One of the earliest founder advice I got, and especially in healthcare, is that everything moves at the speed of trust. And we know how
Yeah.
healthcare adoption cycles, technology cycles, they're longer than an average B2B SaaS cycle. And that's not because people don't want the change, but because they need to know that the downside is minimal to zero and that when you roll it out once, that it's going to work. So that's another thesis of our company building, which is uh, just guarantee 100% on deployment. And I think you see this too with Epic and EHRs that are staying in the space is that you need to be able to deliver on implementation and deliver on product, not just have forecasted marketing, but be able to follow through.
Can you tell us a little bit about building that trust? And you mentioned the EHR now. I think that there's been a lot of interest and focus and maybe frustration too on the state of interoperability. I know as a founder of a clinical AI company that the integrations piece that interoperability can make or break you at healthcare systems. How did you go about navigating that? What's your opinion on how other founders in this space can build their technology for interoperability or maybe go around it altogether? What do you think is the best approach to integrating into the workflow with a company like Knowtex, but maybe also these other clinical AI tools that are emerging?
Yeah, definitely. So I think thinking of the EHR is a necessary part of your product and go-to-market development for any healthcare
Necessary evil,
company.
some would say. No,
Necessary evil, yes. Um,
I said it,
and
not you. That's okay.
you said it right, and I was just requoting. I mean, as I've talked to healthcare buyers, CIOs tell us, is it in the EHR? Is it on the EHR's roadmap? Then we'll go outside and look at other solutions. So that's been the decades long thinking here. And I think there's a lot of credit to what the EHR has done. But if we look at where digital health solutions have been innovating, and I'll say just here from San Francisco, what I see walking down the street at JPM this week, there's so many things out there that the EHR cannot be a gateway to what's possible for clinician and patient care. So when we developed Knowtex, we did our fair share of on-the-ground learning, wanted to be open-minded, and ultimately we reached the conclusion that we need to develop the solution from a first principles mindset with the clinician of what they want, even in a world where it's not limited by what the EHR can allow today. So as we develop our own integration capabilities in-house, that has been something we've always owned. And it's been something we've rolled out with the VA and the government now is becoming the first ever integrated ambient clinical technology into the VA's EHR. And this is CPRS, the computer
Yep, I'm
processing
familiar.
record system.
I used
So
CPRS I worked at the VA when I was both in medical school and in residency. So I remember CPRS. You all are integrated into
we're
CPRS.
integrated.
Wow, that's
And
impressive.
how was your experience with CPRS? How modern do
Mixed.
you feel it is?
Not very, not very. But
But
you
you've
look,
heard it.
it was
Yep.
it has room for improvement, in my opinion, but it was a reliable system for sure. And I mean, I wish that I would get the opportunity to see how you all have integrated into it because, yeah, I think that an ambient tool like yours would have made such a big difference for me as a resident trying to document on rounds, clinical encounters. And I think it's a huge step forward that you all have made by integrating into that system.
Thank you. It is a record-breaking milestone for us to do this. And I think it speaks to what the opportunities there are now. If you think about once interoperability is solved for, then what are the features we want to have from the clinician side? Um, with CPRS, the way we've integrated, we can't take full credit for that. The VA and the government side, they've allocated CTO resources, so their team has been a true partner in that sense. And that's also how we approach integration as a whole, is if we can work with the provider and we can work with the health system, and they are willing to think beyond EHR limitations, then we can build out API connectivity, Firebase API connectivity. We've done HL7, all the things,
Oh,
but that's where I think innovation can really happen that delivers features that really delight the user, that aren't just incremental steps, but let's go for a generational leap and see what's beyond that, to have abstracted data that is at your fingertips and intelligently recommends and activates on your use cases.
love
So
that.
that's the vision we have. I think there is a place and time for this though. So, I would recommend to other folks, it still makes sense to be in EHR marketplaces. We've worked with the different systems, Epic, Oracle, Athena, OncoEMR, Flatiron. So we definitely have earned our stripes in EHR integration, but we believe there's more that you can do with innovating directly with the provider.
Tell me a little bit about the team that you put together to tackle interoperability. I have to imagine that you didn't have a ton of experience before starting the company, specifically in EHR integrations. How did you say, okay, this is a critical part of embedding into the workflow. These are the people I need on my team. This is the technology that I need to really know well. Just talk about that a little bit if you don't mind.
Sure. So on our team, at the founder level, we are Stanford AI researchers. And so our focus is on the model, and I can talk to this too, but proprietary self-hosted models that are specialty trained, that enable multimodal capabilities. On integration, it's not a far jump for us to learn what capabilities there are out there, but I have to give a lot of credit to my CTO, she has had over a decade of integration experience. Her previous startup at Tech Health Tech, She had worked through FedRAMP and IL-6, so she had worked in government deployment and integration. So some of the most gnarly complex workflows, she has knowledge of APIs and also where to deploy an AI model into those environments compliantly. The rest of our team, we have ex-Fang, so ex-Amazon, ex-Zoox team members, staff AI engineers. We have clinical leaders that span, physician practice CEOs, owners, researchers, clinical trial leaders, as well as team members directly from within the VA. We have a clinical customer delivery leader who is 16 years of VA veteran team member and also has had a variety of clinical nursing roles from ICU to outpatient. And then beyond that, just generally ex-government team members too. I think that's been helpful because integration is more than just the technology aspect. It's
Way more.
actually getting the other team to
Yeah.
allocate resources to you, and to work through all the screening, security, compliance, legal as well too. So I think it's a blend of technical talent as well as the go-to-market talent that's made the difference for us.
Yeah, yeah, I call it it's technical and tactical to integrate
That's
into,
perfect. Yeah.
into the EHR. Yeah, and I think that for many people they have seen it as a bit of a blocker to innovation, but obviously there are paths forward, and you all have found one, and many other companies have. Ambient scribes, are they a bubble? Is it a feature and not a product? How do you feel about that? Is ambient technology a wedge, or do you think that it warrants being its own enterprise level use case and product? How are you all thinking about it? You've sort of hinted at it, I feel like, but I'd love to hear your perspective. Obviously, Epic and the other EHRs have begun to announce their own native ambient scribes. How do you think about differentiation, and is ambient scribe a feature or a product?
Yeah, that's a really great question and hot topic. I will say, so scribing itself, I see it as a feature. And Ambient, the space, I see it as a platform. And that's because fundamentally what Ambient unlocks is, and this is what my co-founder and I were initially so passionate about, is voice and true ground truth data of the doctor-patient interaction. So one of the first things we see when a physician starts using Knowtex, they are really impressed by the quality and the quantity of patient details you're getting. So we have over 1 million real clinical conversations in our data set. That's a novel data set, and that informs the rest of the product and workflow design. So in that sense, I think when you think about ambient, it's not just in the clinical workflow today, what it can do ambient in the operating system. We see that opportunity for that too. But it's really becomes the central focal point for upstream and downstream workflows. So when we say voice AI operating system, we believe that is the new enterprise reality. That is the new command centered, new mission control for the clinician that can eliminate the reliance on EHRs that historically have been the data repository, that have been the billing system, that have been the reminder, view alert, all those types of things. So Ambient can abstract all that away, still make sure the data is documented correctly. Our multimodal technology is able to process unstructured data, can process structured data by note templates and specialty templates and all those good things. But it can also surface as far back as decades, 15 plus years of data from the record so that can be at your fingertips as a clinician. So I think the answer to that is scribing as a feature, ambient is here to stay.
Yeah, I like that kind of ambient as the operating system. It's interesting. I talk a little bit about how speaking is faster than typing, and in the world of AI, if velocity is your tool, then voice is really the way to go. Tell me a little bit about that idea of converting conversations to outcomes. You mentioned that scribing is a feature, ambient is here to stay. What is next on Knowtex's roadmap? What should users be excited about? What do you think is something that is unique that you all are doing with voice and ambient to move the needle on clinical outcomes?
Yeah, definitely. So from conversation to impact, we want to close that gap as much as possible because Today, the reality is all the technologies are already existing. It's just figuring out what the package off the shelf complete version should be for the healthcare setting. So we've trained our specialty specific models. It's not generic AI, but fine-tuned LLMs for orthopedics, oncology, primary care, all the 90 plus specialties, and our contextual reasoning engine. We synthesize that conversation with the medical record and clinical protocols in real time. So then what we have is multimodal processing that unifies voice, text, and structured and unstructured data into a single inference pipeline. So what you're getting as a clinician is you don't need to see all that underneath the hood. But if I'm having a patient visit, I should know what this patient's history is through our face sheet, which is a one-page summary of data as far back as 15 years in the record. So I can see all the labs, radiology, last visit note. I can hit record with the ambient. I can get update if this patient is eligible for a clinical trial. And then when I finish my visit, I have told my patient at point of care the most actionable enhancing care information that they deserve to know. And then I can also make sure that I'm ready for the next patient. All my information is documented, notes, coding, orders done within 30 seconds or less, and all of it back into the medical record so that the CIO, the quality team can slice and dice as they need for the next downstream use cases and billing and RCM, right? So that's the workflow we see that is state of art and that clinicians should be able to have across the board.
Love it. I love it. Now, you're, I think, also hinting at a few things. You're talking a lot about data. This is a many, many millions of points of data. You are always, I think, as a founder, trying to tell a story, and data is sometimes the best way to tell that story. What are the KPIs, the metrics that you focus on as a clinical AI company that you share with the CIO, the individual clinician? What are some of those metrics that you think matter and the ones that you have shared with your customers as you roll out an implementation?
Sure. So I think on the technology side, accuracy is number one. So we have audio processing, voice activity detection, custom speech recognition at 97.3% medical accuracy. We have summarization for medical entity extraction at over 99%. And when we say entity extraction, we're talking notes, coding orders, all of that maps to an entity model for us. And then when we have our multimodal work, it's AI synthesis orchestrating real time EHR extraction and knowledge graphs too. And so we have a custom token buffer that allows a lot of opportunities there too. When we talk to hospital leadership, the numbers that matter to us are everybody knows this, 2 hours of time, 2 hours a day, time saved for clinician users that adopt well. But we've had internal EMR data with Epic that says 29% decrease in pajama time. We have seen coding, AI assisted coding at over $92,000 a month of additional revenue capture that's left on the table because clinicians shouldn't be responsible for knowing the coding updates and the logics that change every year.
Are you doing that through, and are you doing that revenue capture through surfacing ICD-10 codes at the point of encounter that, I know for me, I miss a ton of those. Is that sort of the main driver that you've found in generating revenue, or is it other things as well?
So ICD-10s do matter. We surface a specific ICD-10 code at point of care, and it's not just primary, but as like 2 to 3 secondaries.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, it's a lot of clicking that you have to do and searching. And then it's also E&M suggestions.
Mm,
So we can
yep.
provide MDM, medical decision-making analysis guidance there. So data reviewed, the laboratory radiology reports, complexity of diagnosis. So those, different pillars, we can show real-time guidance to the clinician who ultimately selects the final code still and signs off on that. So those are concrete ROI benefits and concrete implementation metrics that we share with hospital stakeholders. And the most important one we do flag is utilization
Mm,
because initially when you roll out AI, it's a lot to tell the hospital stakeholders that you're going to get XYZ results for your system. That's just not something that we can guarantee for an organization. But when you see good utilization and we see above 80%, 90% adoption of clinicians across specialties too, and that's been a game changer for us, is we're really meeting their documentation workflow needs out of the box. Um, then we hear all the happiness and the, time saved, burnout. I
Yeah.
think yeah, some of those magical quotes of saving marriages, those are my favorite, is that you have time back on the weekends with your partner and family.
Yeah.
Um, those are real stories that we think are also important. And
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I can only speak from my own experience using ambient scribe technology. It has definitely made a big difference for me. Some of these metrics you're talking about, so medical decision making, evaluation and management, there's kind of this alphabet soup for the listeners. All these things go into the decision about how much we get paid for a certain clinical encounter. It also candidly can create a huge headache for clinicians when we don't get that information correct the first time we write the note. And I know that for me, it's made a big difference. I didn't go to medical school to learn these complex data models of how to bill for this kind of visit versus that one. I want to focus on the patient in front of me. And so I do think that's a place where Ambient Scribe has made a tremendous difference for me personally, and I'm sure for many others. Um, Tell me a little bit about the first customer that you landed. And I want to hear a bit about, I think that you were maybe kind of hinting at this, right? This idea of adoption and change management. I know that me in my role at Duke as the director of AI and IT innovation, sometimes the tech can be amazing, but if you have not educated the user, made it a frictionless experience, and made them understand why the tool is going to help them specifically, you can lose them. And it doesn't matter how good the technology is. Tell us about your first customer that you landed, what that experience was like, teaching people to use AI. We're still doing that even today, right?
right. And I'll even say myself, like as an AI first company, an AI native company, we also try to dog food AI into our processes, and it's not easy changing your workflows at all. So our first customer, and I remember this so clearly because um, I'll keep him anonymous, but he's a 75-year-old clinician and oncologist, and he had never used a scribe, um, dictated a little bit, would print out 20 pages of paper every day for
Oh,
chart review and pre-charting. He liked to write up the notes too. So he took a lot of pride in his work, and he saw notes as his legacy when we're no longer here. So I think someone who delivered such quality of care, but in his lifetime told us that the EHR had only increased his workload. He didn't feel like he was operating at his competency level, and that he was spending 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours every night just working on that. So he was very resistant to scribes and to Knowtex. And it took probably a good 6 months as we were developing the
yeah.
product in his clinic to be able to even encourage him to be open-minded. His line was that I'll have to die before this technology can help me. And I think that's
Wow.
how some people feel
Yeah.
is
Oh,
that
yeah. We've seen that for sure.
right. Is that technology will have to skip me and be in the next generation. Um, but I can just, long story short, today he is a super user of Knowtex, and he uses us for all his clinician visits. In oncology, that's going from about 15 visits a day to over 20, which is significant. And then also that he is able to use extra time, not just to save time on the burnout on documentation, but to read clinical research papers, to see more patients if he wants to. All those things are just incredible value for him. And he told us that do not take it away from me. So that's what he's been telling us to everybody. And I think that's like the biggest win we can have with anybody is that now our technology is something that is a daily reliance in your life and that's adding value and that is making the joy of medicine possible for you again. And so he did not think technology helped him at all in his lifetime with the medical record, but that ambient AI technology really restored his belief in that.
Yeah, it's an amazing, I think, state of affairs because I think that for ambient technology in clinical care, it really feels like now if our ambient scribe is down, everything grinds to a halt. You don't realize once you've adopted this technology how hard it is to live without it. That's probably the best definition of product market fit, and you all have found it obviously. Um, what is the best advice you've ever received as a founder and the worst?
Oof, best advice. I think best advice is build long-term relationships in the industry. I say this about healthcare because things move at speed of trust, but it's probably true across the board. Is today I was meeting with somebody I had met two JPMs ago that told me they were not ready for ambient. In 2023. It would have to be an RFP in 2025. And lo
Hmm,
and behold, it's
they're
2025.
ready.
So they're ready. But I think that's like a microcosm of everybody comes around and some solutions, they grow so fast too that you can partner with systems or clinicians that tell me that 2 years ago, I can't believe I didn't start using this 2 years ago. I would have saved
Hmm.
XYZ amount of time. I mean, that's 2 hours per day over 2 years. You can do the math. So build long-term relationships because you just don't know where that might compound and open doors. Where's the advice that I got? Um,
Is there such a thing as bad advice? I mean, absolutely, right?
I think so. I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
noise that you can focus on. I think worst advice. Truthfully, I think it's that there is a set playbook that you have to
Mm,
follow for adoption of technology. Because, like you said, velocity is everything. So if something's not moving quickly, there's probably another way, or at least like less path of a lesser path of resistance or friction to adoption. So I think this is true. I'm selling my first customers. They just didn't want it bad enough, or health
hmm.
systems. Like there are innovative systems that the government was ready to adopt the solution, and there are still some hospitals out there that are not ready for ambient or not yet. So I think it's just going to find. You'll talk to those individuals, they'll say this is not possible, but then you just have to go find somebody who understands the magic you're creating and the value you're generating. So that's the advice is listen to your customer, but definitely have many touch points to be able to figure out who's your true user and demand and can be a
Yeah.
person after.
That is, yeah, that I think that is honestly amazing advice. I think that, yeah, yes, you listen to the customer. We are in this interesting space where sometimes the customer doesn't know what they want or are asking for. And I think you have to be creative and sometimes, to your point, find the right customer for the time that we're in and for the product that you're building. If you weren't building Notex, what healthcare problem do you think you would be looking to solve?
I mean, the short answer, there's no other problem I'd rather be solving
Awesome. Your
because
investors are very happy.
well, it's because we believe so much
Yeah.
in Ambient as being an operating system, the new operating system for healthcare. So when it comes down to that, then I think workflows stem from the doctor-patient visit. So even intake and everything else,
Yeah.
we want to work in the center of everything.
Yeah. Now, I think that there's been big splashes in the last few days, at least when we're recording this, on Anthropic Health. Maybe you saw them at JPM, ChatGPT Health. These are patient-facing tools. They definitely create a little bit of, I'll say, uh, hesitancy for me as a clinician, as a doctor, right? I think that I've lived through the Dr. Google era. Now I'm moving into the Dr. ChatGPT era. I think it's great, but there's definitely some hesitancy that I have on having patients have access to these tools that are speaking so confidently to them about their clinical problem. What is your thought, your position on expanding these tools to be patient facing? What does that look like? Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? Is there a way to do it responsibly? Would love to hear your perspective as a clinical AI founder.
Absolutely. Uh, I think personally, I'm going through some of a journey here too because I injured my shoulder, traumatic injury, and I'm doing PT. So
Yeah.
I ran my own MRI report through GPT Claude. We have access to all of them, so do a lot of personal R&D. And ultimately, when my decision-making process comes down to it, I'm still trusting the expert. I'm still trusting the orthopedic surgeon and the PT as the person quarterbacking my medical care. And it makes me feel more comfortable to have a human um, agent, let's say,
In the
uh,
loop.
in the loop. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And even for Ambient, right? The clinician is always the human in the loop for us, signing off, making edits, so that we're customizing over time to the industry expert. And we also see the clinician as being that expert linchpin inside the hospital ecosystem for the patient. So when we see tools that are the broader use case AI, like GPT, OpenAI, Claude, um, there was a time when we thought about building a patient-facing application, but the amount of use case that a clinician has every day for Knowtex, as an orthopedic surgeon, that's 50 plus in a day,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
You're
yeah.
cranking
Yeah.
out those visits. So that's the opportunity to really have true utilization fit and also data capture. The patient is if you're a normal patient, you're maybe only seeing the doctor like once a year. So
Yeah.
that's not enough of a use case to be able to say this model is best in class. So when we're in healthcare, we believe people still want humans being the face of the interaction. We believe that people want expertise. And so it's really about supercharging the clinician, not replacing them. We believe that it's about making the experience more human and not less. And so that is just eliminating away all the other data entry tasks, but that the clinician can have a face-to-face, eye-to-eye conversation. And then ultimately it's being hallucination proof. So when we say
Mhm.
best in class model, even on the ambient side, we can say there's a spectrum of tools that have different performance. So when we say 99% plus medical entity extraction, we're also baking that into, linked evidence for our transcripts and our note generation and code generation, order generation, contextual linked evidence from the chart history as well too. And also for us, we have our internal model evaluation platform. So that is something we have in-house, healthcare native, and native to the ambient use case. So those are metrics we've co-designed with clinician leaders and clinician stakeholders, that things like note accuracy, note length, all those things are really important to make sure the product is best in class for healthcare because people will pay for that difference in quality of care.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that there is this talk about, well, when good enough comes from the EHR, is that going to displace some of these best-in-class tools? I'm not sure personally, honestly, because once you get used to a certain level of quality in these kinds of tools, it makes a big difference. And conversation really does have the opportunity to be the springboard for outcomes. Clinical AI is kind of the first time we've been able to see that. So I definitely agree with you that there's something special there. I personally am definitely a little nervous about AI indiscriminately being put into patients' hands for health use cases, but I do think someone's going to end up figuring it out and hopefully do it in a responsible way, and we'll see what that future looks like. What are you most excited about at Knowtex for the over the next year, 2026? What's on Knowtex's roadmap? What do you want listeners and users to know about the big things you all are cooking up? Tell us, wow us.
Sure. Just one point there. I agree. I think public health messaging is playing catch up to all the AI innovation. And to the point of what EHRs are good enough, that's also the thing is that speed velocity is going to be their Achilles heel,
Yep.
is you can't wait for another decade of a clinician's life or a year of a clinician's life to have tools that can save hours today. Um, so 2026, really exciting year for us. Well, we have some news coming out about our expanded deployment of our voice AI operating system at the government. But in terms of products, I think this is a year where having order entry is going to be on the table
Hmm.
stakes for ambient solutions. And we have this out today with different specialty clinics. We have this as part of our work with the VA too, but it's going to be the new state of affairs that you go in a room, you walk out. Now it's not just a note, but you are going to expect that your ambient tool can do all those things, notes, coding, and orders from the conversation. And then beyond that is that we're going to want everything in the workflow. So the
Hmm.
clinician can be able to have evidence-backed research inside the Ambient platform or inside their patient visit workflow, not having to switch screens. I'll call out names here, but not having to say look up things in GPT or Open Evidence or
Hmm.
Doximity, but to be able to actually do this right in the Ambient workflow. That's my prediction for 2026, and that's also what we're working on at Knowtex today.
Yeah, and I will say, and I won't name names, maybe I will, but I am seeing this convergence of clinical AI products, right? I think that we've seen Open Evidence come out with a voice over internet protocol tool. It's very similar to Doximity GPT on the dialer. Like everyone is ultimately trying to own different aspects of the clinician's workflow. Do you think that's the way to go? That you need to surface all of these tools within one platform rather than as a feature? And if so, how do you see the differentiation happening between these tools that were deployed either first as medical answering tools, ambient scribes, voice AI? Do they all belong in one stack, or is there going to be a best in class of these different features? How do you think about it as a CEO of a company?
Sure. So I would say the consolidation is a phenomenon that's natural in healthcare, and I even see it as a good thing that we don't have to be juggling all these different context windows or piecemeal components of the healthcare interaction. Everything should be seamless, everything should be interoperable and intelligent. The question is like, what's actually the sticky solution? And that's the actual truth of the interaction. So our position is that it is the conversation between doctor and patient, because everything else is a secondhand source, or can be publicly accessible. So we want to bring people back to what is irreplaceable, what is the true raw data. And we believe that is in the visit, in the interaction. And that's also the most powerful time you can influence the patient to take certain actions or sign them up for a trial or inform them of this research and the pharmaceutical side effects of this medication. So I think intelligent surfacing of data is now going to be the new norm rather than, oh my gosh, how many different data sources can we create for you and how many
Yeah,
different platforms can you go search? But how can we meet you where you are? So that is where we believe that consolidation is going to come down to where people are naturally already.
that's excellent. Yeah, I mean, the idea of an ambient encounter then putting in my orders sounds amazing as a surgeon and a clinician. So when that's
Right.
happening,
Cortisone shots, everything, MRI,
oh
let's get you
man.
going.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't order a lot of MRIs. I'm a trauma surgeon, but
Okay, right.
but my X-rays, yes, yes,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. No, I will be excited to have Knowtex order my physical therapy for me and more based off of the conversation I have with a patient. I think that will be fantastic. Um, Caroline, it's been phenomenal interviewing you, hearing more about Knowtex. If the listeners and the readers want to learn more about Knowtex, get in touch with you, or are thinking about deploying Knowtex or a tool like it in their own workflow or at their own institution, how should they get in touch with you? Where should we reach out?
Sure. So easiest way to get in touch is go to notex.ai. That's our website. There's a contact us form there. And then if you want to follow on our journey as figuring out what's coming down the line or who's using us, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and X, Twitter. So you can find us on all those platforms and follow us.
Excellent. All right. This was Caroline Zhang, CEO of Knowtex. We are so excited to have had you here today. Really excited to see everything you all have already achieved, and even more excited to see what you all achieve in 2026 and beyond.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.